Did you know clutter isn't just messy? It can actually increase anxiety, make you feel overwhelmed, and even impact your memory as you age. It's true. Studies show that too much stuff around you can quietly drain your energy and peace of mind. Now, be honest, are you tired of looking at piles of papers, clothes, and forgotten items, wondering where to even begin? You're not alone. Meet Grace, a 72-year-old retired school counsellor who's lived in her home for over 50 years. Her house holds a treasure trove of memories, old family photos, knickknacks from travels, clothes she wore to her kids' graduations, and boxes of paperwork she intended to organise one day. Over the years, all these sentimental items began to pile up, creating more chaos than comfort. Grace wasn't lazy, but every time she tried to tackle the clutter, she felt like she was swimming in it, unsure of where to start. The kitchen table, covered in unopened mail, the living room, overflowing with old magazines and keepsakes. The closet, packed to the brim with clothes she didn't wear anymore but couldn't bear to part with. Each pile seemed bigger than the last, and every time Grace looked at it, she felt paralyzed. She'd think, "I'll just deal with it tomorrow," but tomorrow never came. Does this sound familiar to you? Maybe you're like Grace, surrounded by things that once meant something to you, but now they're just adding to your stress. Well, Grace found a way out of the clutter, and so can you. Today, I'll show you the exact 9 steps that helped Grace reclaim her home, one small, manageable task at a time. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed by your things and start living in a space that brings you peace, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more practical tips designed for seniors like you. And tell me in the comments, where's the one area of your home that's driving you crazy? Let's talk about it. Step 1. Start small, the 10-minute rule. When Grace first started tackling her clutter, the thought of cleaning her entire home seemed impossible. She had accumulated years of stuff, and the piles were overwhelming. But instead of thinking about cleaning the whole house at once, she took a different approach. She started with just 10 minutes a day. This might sound too simple to be effective, but it works. The 10-minute rule is all about breaking the task into tiny, manageable chunks that won't overwhelm you. By dedicating just 10 minutes each day, Grace found that she could start small and make progress every day without feeling exhausted or discouraged. Grace began by choosing one small area to focus on, just one drawer in the kitchen that had become a catch-all for old receipts, pens, and miscellaneous items. It wasn't a big space, but it was a small victory. Instead of diving into the entire kitchen or the whole house, she tackled one thing at a time. And you know what? Once that drawer was clean, she felt accomplished. It gave her the momentum to tackle the next small task. It's important to understand that decluttering doesn't have to be a marathon. In fact, trying to do too much at once can lead to burnout. By committing just 10 minutes a day, you're making steady progress. And over time, those small tasks start to add up. Soon you'll realize you've cleared an entire room without feeling like you've put in hours of work. For Grace, the 10-minute rule was a game changer. It helped her break through the mental block of feeling overwhelmed. She didn't have to think about decluttering the entire house. All she needed to focus on was the next small task. Have you ever tried the 10-minute rule? Let me know if it worked for you. Or maybe you've tried another technique that helped. Share it in the comments and let's support each other. By starting small and celebrating each little win, Grace built momentum. She didn't have to wait for a weekend or clear an entire day to get started. Instead, she created a routine that fit into her life without adding extra stress. And remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. So start with just 10 minutes today and see how much you can get done. Step 2. Pick one. Category: not a room. When Grace first started decluttering, she quickly realized that bouncing around from room to room wasn't helping her make any real progress. One minute she'd be in the living room sorting through old DVDs, and the next she'd be in the bedroom trying to deal with a pile of clothes. It felt like she was running in circles, never truly finishing anything. That's when she decided to focus on one category at a time, instead of bouncing around from room to room. This approach was a game changer. When you try to tackle everything at once, it can be overwhelming, and you risk not making any meaningful progress. By focusing on just one category, clothes, books or papers, you can make steady, manageable progress and feel a sense of accomplishment as you go. Grace decided to start with her books. She had shelves filled with novels, cookbooks and journals, and every time she looked at them, she felt a little guilty for not reading them all. Rather than randomly picking a few books here and there, she committed herself to the task of sorting through just her book collection. She took everything off the shelves, laid them out, and carefully asked herself, which ones will I actually read again? And which ones no longer serve me? By focusing solely on the books, Grace didn't have to worry about the clutter in the kitchen or the clothes piling up in the closet. She allowed herself to focus only on the books, and by the end of it, she had a clear shelf filled only with the books she truly loved and wanted to keep. Have you ever tried focusing on one category at a time? What's one category in your home that's driving you crazy? Let me know in the comments below. By focusing on a single category, you prevent the overwhelming feeling of trying to do everything at once. And with each category you clear, you'll see visible progress, building momentum to keep going. Grace felt the satisfaction of finishing one category, and that motivated her to tackle the next one. Step 3. The 4-box method. When Grace took on her next decluttering challenge, she was ready to take it up a notch. She realized that simply sorting through her items wasn't enough. She needed a system. That's when she discovered the 4-box method, and it completely changed the way she tackled the clutter in her home. Here's how it works. You create 4 boxes, each with a specific label: keep things that you want to keep and still use regularly. Donate items that no longer serve you but could be of use to someone else. Trash, things that are broken, outdated or no longer needed. Unsure, items you're not sure about yet. Grace set up these 4 boxes in her living room, making sure each one was clearly labelled. This simple system helped her make decisions faster. No more wandering around the house wondering where things should go. She had a clear path for everything. She started with her clothes, which were a big category for her. She asked herself, do I wear this? Does it still fit? Is it worth keeping? Anything that didn't make the cut went into the donate or trash box. Clothes that still had a purpose, like her favourite sweater or that pair of shoes she wore often, went into the keep box. The unsure box was for those items that caused her to pause, like a jacket that no longer fit but had sentimental value. One of the most rewarding things Grace found about the 4-box method was how quickly she started to see results. She could look at her hallway, which was filled with the labelled boxes, and see her progress right in front of her. It was no longer about deciding what to do with everything at once. It was about making one decision at a time and letting the boxes guide her. By the end of her decluttering session, Grace had a pile ready for donation, a trash bag full of items she no longer needed, and a smaller, more organised closet. The process felt so much more structured, and she was able to tackle the entire task without feeling overwhelmed. Have you ever used the 4-box method? How do you decide what to keep or let go of? Share your thoughts in the comments. Step 4. Set a visible deadline. Grace knew that without a deadline, her decluttering project could easily drag on for months, leaving her feeling discouraged. But how do you stay motivated when you're dealing with years of accumulated stuff? The answer? Set a visible deadline. Grace decided to give herself a clear time frame to tackle one area of her home, her kitchen counter. She knew it was one of the messiest parts of the house and the area where she spent a lot of time, so she set a goal. Clear the kitchen counter in 7 days. This was a manageable yet challenging deadline that motivated her to get started and keep going. Why was setting a visible deadline so effective for Grace? Having a time limit made the task feel more urgent, and that urgency gave her the drive to stay focused. She marked her calendar, writing 7 days to clear kitchen counter in bold letters. Every time she walked past the calendar, she saw the deadline and knew she needed to stay on track. Grace also broke down the task into smaller, more achievable steps. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the thought of tackling every inch of the kitchen counter at once, she focused on one part of the counter each day. For example, Day 1 was dedicated to clearing off the right side of the counter, and Day 2 was for the left side. On Day 3, she went through the pile of mail that had been accumulating for weeks. By the end of the week, Grace had completed her goal. The visual reminder of the deadline kept her accountable. Each day she could check off what she had accomplished, which gave her a sense of satisfaction and pride. The visible progress also fueled her desire to keep going, even when it felt difficult. Have you ever set a deadline to declutter an area in your home? How did it work for you? Let me know in the comments. Setting a visible deadline doesn't just keep you motivated, it makes the task feel real. It takes decluttering from an endless project to a task with a clear endpoint, which makes it so much easier to commit to. Grace learned that having a deadline not only made the task less daunting, but also gave her a sense of purpose and momentum. Step 5. Ask yourself the golden question. When Grace reached a point where she was feeling stuck with some of her items, she discovered a powerful tool to help her make decisions faster: the golden question. It's simple, yet incredibly effective. Would I buy this today if I didn't already own it? At first, Grace wasn't sure how asking herself this question would make a difference. But after a few rounds of questioning her possessions, she realized how much it helped her cut through the clutter and make decisions that were long overdue. Grace had a drawer full of old kitchen gadgets. Things like a garlic press she hadn't used in years, a bread maker she bought on a whim, and an electric can opener that was collecting dust. Each time she opened that drawer, it reminded her of the space she was wasting and the things she no longer used. The pile was growing, and every time she opened that drawer, it added to the overwhelming feeling of clutter. That's when she decided to try the golden question on the gadgets. Would I buy this today if I didn't already own it? The garlic press? Absolutely not. She rarely made garlic-heavy dishes anymore. Into the donate box it went. The bread maker? While it had been useful in the past, Grace hadn't used it in years. Would she buy it today? No. It was taking up valuable space, so she sent it off to the donate pile too. The electric can opener, though handy at one point, was something she hadn't used in months. Another item that failed the golden question, and out it went. What Grace realized was that the golden question cut through the excuses. It made her see the things she was holding on to because of sentimental reasons, guilt, or the idea that maybe someday I'll need it, and helped her let them go. This simple question helped Grace feel more in control of her space and gave her a fresh perspective on her possessions. She started to see her home as a place where only the things she truly loved and needed had a space. Pause for a second. What's one thing in your house you know you'd never buy today? Comment below. Asking yourself the golden question works wonders because it cuts through all the clutter of what-ifs and maybes. It's about focusing on what truly brings value to your life right now. For Grace, the result was a kitchen that felt lighter and more organized, and a sense of clarity about what truly mattered to her. Step 6. Memory, not stuff. When Grace started her decluttering journey, she found herself facing a common challenge: how to let go of sentimental items. Like many of us, she had boxes of keepsakes, old birthday cards, souvenirs from vacations, and letters from loved ones. These things carried memories, but they were also taking up precious space. Grace struggled to decide what to keep and what to part with. That's when she came across a simple but powerful rule: keep one meaningful item, not the entire collection. Instead of holding on to every card or gift that had sentimental value, Grace started asking herself, what's the one item that truly captures this memory? For example, she had an entire drawer full of birthday cards, cards from family members, friends, and even distant relatives she hadn't seen in years. Each card had a thoughtful message, but did she need to keep them all? The answer was no. Grace carefully went through the cards and chose one: a handwritten letter from her daughter on her 60th birthday. It was the only card that stood out, the one that made her smile every time she read it. The others, while meaningful, didn't carry the same weight, so she let them go. This approach didn't just help with cards, it applied to many other items. Instead of keeping a whole collection of holiday decorations, Grace kept just one meaningful ornament: a hand-painted angel her grandmother gave her. And instead of storing every souvenir from her travels, she kept a single photograph from each trip that best represented the experience. Grace found that by focusing on memories rather than stuff, she was able to preserve the emotional value without the clutter. She now had a small collection of meaningful items that brought her joy and helped her relive beautiful memories without overwhelming her space. Think about it. What's one item in your home that holds the most memories for you? Let me know in the comments. By following the principle of memory, not stuff, Grace felt less burdened by her past and more connected to the people and moments that truly mattered. Letting go of the excess didn't mean she was losing the memories, it meant she was making space for new ones. Step 7. Enlist help without guilt. Decluttering can feel overwhelming, and the truth is you don't have to do it alone. Grace learned this valuable lesson when she reached a point where the task of clearing out her entire home felt like too much for one person to handle. It was a major turning point in her decluttering journey, asking for help. Grace realized that there's no shame in seeking support, whether it's from a family member, a friend, or even a professional organizer. Getting help doesn't diminish the value of the process. It just makes it easier and less stressful. For Grace, her daughter played a huge role in her decluttering success. One Sunday afternoon, her daughter came over and together they tackled Grace's closet, a space that had been growing more chaotic over the years. Grace had been too attached to some of the clothes, pieces she hadn't worn in years, but felt too sentimental to part with. With her daughter by her side, Grace was able to make decisions more easily. Her daughter didn't judge or rush her. Instead, she provided encouragement and emotional support, making it easier for Grace to let go of items she no longer needed. They went through each piece of clothing one by one. Do you wear this? Does it still fit? Is it something you love? With her daughter's help, Grace was able to create a much more organized closet, while also feeling less emotionally tied to the items she was letting go. Enlisting help isn't just for family members, it can also be a great opportunity to hire a professional organizer if you're feeling overwhelmed. A professional can help you make tough decisions, give you fresh perspectives, and guide you through the process in a way that's manageable for you. Grace found that asking for help brought a new level of accountability to the process. Her daughter wasn't just assisting with the physical labor, she was also providing emotional support that made Grace feel more confident about her decisions. The experience brought them closer together, and by the end of the day, Grace's closet was transformed, and she felt lighter, both physically and emotionally. Have you ever asked for help with decluttering? How did it feel to have someone by your side? Share your experience in the comments below. Don't feel guilty about asking for help. Decluttering doesn't have to be a solitary task, whether you're asking for assistance from someone close to you or hiring a professional. It's okay to lean on others. It can make the process not only easier but also more enjoyable. Step 8. Create a no-clutter zone. As Grace continued her decluttering journey, she realized that the key to maintaining her progress wasn't just about clearing everything out, it was about creating a space that would always stay organized no matter what. This is where the concept of a no-clutter zone came in. A no-clutter zone is exactly what it sounds like, a designated area in your home that will remain clutter-free, no matter how much the rest of your house may accumulate. For Grace, this became her kitchen table. It was a spot she used every day, whether for meals, reading the newspaper, or having her morning coffee. But it also became a dumping ground for all sorts of things: mail, keys, coupons, and random items she didn't want to deal with at the moment. The clutter built up quickly, and it always made her feel stressed and disorganized. Grace decided that the kitchen table would be her no-clutter zone. Every day, no matter how busy she was, she would make sure that this space was always clear and inviting. It didn't have to be spotless, but it had to be free from unnecessary items. This small daily commitment to keeping one area clear became an essential part of Grace's routine. At first, it was hard for Grace to maintain the no-clutter zone. She had to remind herself daily to keep the table clean. However, as time went on, it became easier. Small wins like this kept her motivated. When Grace walked into the kitchen and saw the empty table, she felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. This one clutter-free area helped her stay focused and energized, knowing that she had at least one place in her home that was always calm and organized. Having a no-clutter zone also helped Grace build momentum. Every time she cleared the table, she was reminded of how easy it was to create a tidy space, and this inspired her to declutter other areas of her home. It became a positive feedback loop. A tidy kitchen table made her want to keep other parts of the house just as clean, and that momentum kept her on track. Do you have a no-clutter zone in your home? What area would you choose to always keep clear? Let me know in the comments. Creating a no-clutter zone isn't just about having a clean space. It's about giving yourself a place to reset, recharge, and feel calm amidst the chaos. For Grace, this simple step made all the difference. It helped her stay organized and kept her motivated as she continued to tackle the rest of her home. Step 9. Celebrate small victories. As Grace made progress in her decluttering journey, she realized something important. It's not just about the end result, but celebrating the small victories along the way. Every drawer cleared, every pile of items donated, every closet organized, these were all significant achievements, and they deserved to be acknowledged. At first, Grace focused so much on the big picture, the whole house, she often forgot to pause and celebrate her progress. She'd finish a task, like clearing out a closet or going through a stack of old papers, and immediately move on to the next project without taking a moment to appreciate what she'd accomplished. But as time went on, Grace recognized that celebrating these small wins was a crucial part of staying motivated. So she decided to make a habit of rewarding herself after each small victory. For example, after finishing her first drawer, she treated herself to a nice cup of coffee at her favorite cafe. It wasn't about spending a lot of money, it was about acknowledging her hard work and taking a moment to enjoy the fruits of her labor. That little treat made her feel good about what she had done, and it helped her keep going. The key here is not just to celebrate the big milestones, but to recognize the little steps. Every time Grace finished decluttering a space, she celebrated it, whether it was a simple coffee break, a walk outside, or even just a moment of relaxation with a good book. These small celebrations reminded her that decluttering wasn't an endless chore. It was a series of steps that were making her home feel more peaceful and organized. How do you celebrate your small victories? What's your favorite way to treat yourself after finishing a task? Let me know in the comments. Celebrating these small wins helps create a sense of accomplishment and boosts morale. It reminds you that decluttering isn't a race to the finish line, it's a journey, and every step forward deserves to be recognized. Building momentum through positive reinforcement makes the process feel more enjoyable and sustainable. Grace's decluttering journey wasn't just about getting rid of old clothes or boxes of unused items. It was about reclaiming her space and ultimately her peace of mind. After months of steady effort, she now feels a sense of calm and satisfaction when she walks into her home. The piles of clutter that once overwhelmed her and created anxiety are now replaced with clear, organized spaces that feel inviting and serene. Before, Grace would look around her home and feel buried beneath the weight of the things she had accumulated over the years. There were stacks of papers, drawers stuffed with old gadgets, and corners filled with things she thought she might need someday. She felt trapped by her belongings, unable to truly enjoy her home or have people over without feeling embarrassed by the mess. But now things are different. Grace has space. Not just physical space, but emotional space. The clutter-free zones she created provide a sense of calm that she never knew was possible. She feels empowered by her ability to keep the areas in her home clean, and more importantly, she feels free from the burden of excess stuff. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Which step are you going to try first? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more life-changing tips and advice tailored just for you. Feel free to share this video with others who could use some decluttering inspiration, and let's help each other create peaceful, organized spaces.